You're listening to the Content Sells podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 249. I'm Susie Daphnis, and here is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Susie. I'm very well, thanks. Although I'm really wondering, Susie, how the heck did it get to be November? Isn't this like March or something?
I feel like it should be March because there's a lot of things that I've just blanked on. Like, I don't know where this year's gone, but here we are. And November's a wonderful time, especially here in Australia where we're based. It's just coming into summer and everything is blooming and it's blooming awesome.
Blooming awesome, mate.
So, yeah, as this episode goes to air, we're well into November and the end of the year is just around the corner. And we highly recommend that you start planning your next year in November. And that way you can hit the ground running in January. And today we're looking at a very specific part of your planning process, and that's planning out your social media calendar.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to getting into this, Susie, because not having a forward plan for your social media is one of the biggest reasons that we can feel overwhelmed and confused about our social posts. And it's such a valuable avenue for most businesses in terms of attracting, converting, and keeping new customers. That is our social media channels. Really, this is a must-listen episode. So for anyone who is getting on with their big picture strategic planning for next year now, which, like Susie said, we highly recommend, we've also got our last episode. We're on a bit of a planning bender right now, and I want to make a quick mention of that here right at the start of the show. It's a good sister episode to this one, and that's episode 248, Why You Need to Plan Next Year Now. And like I said, it's a great companion to this episode. It's got tons of help and advice for you to make the most of this November and every November thereafter, and to get some important foundations in place for a successful new year.
So definitely check that podcast episode out. And November is a great month for planning inside of our mastermind. We spent a whole day in person planning out our marketing campaigns for the next year inside the Her Business community. We have a half-day planning day where similarly people are mapping out their next quarter. So no matter when you listen to this episode, though, or the last episode we referenced, you can use the planning frameworks and the tips and advice that we share really at any time to get yourself really organized, because it's always a great time of year to plan. But we found that if we don't make the most of November, then suddenly we're on to the holidays and suddenly it's the end of January and you're wondering what the heck happened. So I want to pick up on something that you said, Michelle, and that's about not having a plan for our social media being one of the root causes for struggling with social media, because I really believe that's true. And having a social media calendar not only helps with keeping things consistent, so you're ghosting people, but it also allows you to be more strategic about your content and what you're posting when. And we're all about strategic content marketing right here on this show. So when you have a plan for your social media content, you can ensure that you are hitting all your key objectives throughout the year, like promoting the launch of any new product or service, or building relationships with your audience, or sharing valuable content that demonstrates your authority and expertise. And having a plan is such a huge time saver. Now, while putting together the plan may take a little bit of time, the habit of having a plan is a real game changer. And it doesn't have to be complex, as we're going to discuss here in this episode. When you have a plan in place, you actually spend less time scrambling to figure out what to post day to day and more time focusing on what really matters in your business, what really moves the needle. And it also means that you can enlist team members to support you, because what needs to be done is clearly laid out when you have a plan. Now, whether that's a virtual assistant or a marketing person on your team, or an external contractor or consultant that you hire to help you, you may even have a number of people working on your social media, from graphic designers to video editors and copywriters, depending when you are at your business, where you are in your business. But enlisting other people to help really helps when you have a clear plan. Now, whether you're getting started out and maybe you're the person doing it all, or you're handing part of the process off to one person, or you've got a bigger team working on your content, having a social media calendar is key to being efficient and effective with your posting and meeting your goals. So, for example, on our team, we have 4 people who are involved in our social media posting. Now, that is not their full-time role, but 4 people touch our social media before you might see it. So I set the strategy and the overall direction, and I make sure that it aligns with our bigger goals and our tone of voice and our style. There's also a copywriter, there's a graphic designer, and then there's someone who updates the calendar and our project management software and schedules and posts the content. So having a plan is key for us to see the whole process work smoothly, because we actually post very frequently, at least once a day. And that doesn't just happen by accident. That happens because it's all thought about strategically ahead of time. Now, you don't need to have that many people working on your social media, and perhaps you won't, but these are people on my team. They're working on other things, as I mentioned. So our copywriter would also be writing newsletters and emails and sales page copy, etc. But one of the things she does is also she has her head across most of our social media post copy as well. So whether it's a team of 1 or 100, the plan, in my point of view, is an essential part of having success with your social media.
Absolutely. And, for sure, a plan saves time. And the flip side of that is also true. Without a plan, social media can end up being a huge waste of time. Like you could put a ton of effort and cost and time and headspace into something and not only be no better off, you could actually be substantially worse off because there's a massive opportunity cost associated with whatever you're putting your time and attention on. And my big concern is that a lot of small businesses spend way too much time on posting on social media that isn't going to do anything for them. And when you're just putting your time into something where there's just no return, that's costing you. It's costing you time you could be spending getting sales and having an impact every single day. So many business owners are posting on social media without really understanding what they're trying to achieve with each and every post. And one of the most powerful ways to approach this is by thinking about the conversion job of every post. This is what you want to be building into your plan. And this gets back to a mantra that I've used for almost 2 decades, and we love using it here on this show, and that is no content without conversion. No content without conversion. And that applies to all the content we create, including what we're posting on social media. So what does that mean? It means every post we make should have a purpose and a clear conversion goal. That doesn't mean that the conversion goal for every post is to make a sale on every post. It doesn't mean every post has to say, and click here to buy my thing, although some of them do need to do that. But it does mean it's important to understand where that particular post fits into your overall campaign, into your overall business goals, into the overall sequence of information and communication and stories that you are telling in that particular time frame. So, for example, is it part of a pre-launch strategy, that post, where you're warming up your audience for a specific offer that you're going to make in the somewhat near future? Maybe you're not mentioning your product yet. Maybe it's too soon to be talking about the product because you can't sustain all that interest for weeks and weeks before you're about to launch it. But you're teaching people what to want. Let's say you're helping them with a particular strategy, you're going to put out posts that help them see the importance of this strategy. So when you launch that course or that opportunity to work with you in a one-to-one way on that particular strategy, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, I've been thinking about this a lot. You've been posting about this. This is a big problem that I have that I didn't even realize I had. I absolutely want this product. So are you teaching people what to want? Or are they getting the idea that something cool is coming on their radar? Maybe you start teasing something's coming. Maybe you're working behind the scenes on something. You're in with your video camera and you take a photo of that and let them know something good is coming. That's all pre-launch strategy. So you've planned a date in the future that you're going to launch something, and then you count the weeks forward and you say, I'm going to use this part as pre-launch. And this is the type of social media posting I want to be doing in the pre-launch phase. Or is it your pre-launch strategy where you're starting to talk more about your upcoming offer and building demand and interest? Or is it during a launch where you're actively selling? You want to know those phases, and it's really hard to know those phases if you're not pre-planning them. And whether you think in terms of launches, some of us do, some of us don't, you do need to think of your social media in terms of the campaigns each post is supporting. So whether your product is always open or only open for a set time, every time you are marketing something, though, you want to be thinking in terms of campaigns. So is it helping you raise awareness? Is it helping you generate leads or convert sales? And for which of your offers? So your social media plan is really carefully tied in with your overall marketing plan and the specific campaigns and objectives you have throughout your year.
Right. And your social media plan supports the broader marketing business plans. So the clearer you can be about those, the easier it's going to be to get your social media plan done and really aligned with those other plans. Now, we focus a lot on planning inside of her business. Our members get a bonus half-day training with me. We make our planner kit available with big paper, really gorgeous planners. And all through November and December, our masterclasses, editorials in our newsletter, our online challenges are all about providing planning resources. Now, every quarter, we also have a half-day strategy meeting where members plan their next quarter's strategy relating to their marketing, their mindset, their money, and their teams. And inside of the mastermind program that Michelle and I run, we have built a 90-day planning process as well. So in November, our masterminders get a dedicated planning day, as I mentioned earlier, to set them up for success for the year. Then once we plan the year, then we help them break that down into 4 90-day plans so that it's manageable and they can really focus on achieving whatever the next 90-day objective is. We then have monthly calls to support them in completing their plan. And we actually also have quarterly 2-day meetings where we meet in person to help them set their next 90 days. And so not only do we have this cadence of checking in regularly to see how we're progressing, but we're always injecting a planning component to everything we're doing so that we're not ever sort of falling behind or surprised by what needs to be in our list of actions or to-dos because it's all been planned ahead. So this is a really effective way to stay on track for your big picture goals throughout the year. We love that 90-day planning idea.
Yeah, and to pick up on your point, Susie, if you've done that planning, then that means you plan out your product launches for the year. You know when your big promotions are and what you're offering when. So you're in a great position to then plan your social media content in response to and to support those plans rather than it just kind of being random.
Right. We don't like random. So rather than posting randomly or for the sake of posting because you think you should be posting, think strategically. How does this post fit into my larger campaign and my larger plan? What action do I want my audience to take? So, for example, during the pre-launch part of a marketing campaign, so that means, the period in your marketing campaign where you're not even asking people to buy, you're very early on, you're just starting to give people the idea of what to want. Your post might be more about education or creating curiosity around the problem that your product solves. In pre-launch, when you're getting closer to making your offer, you might start teasing the solution or the offer itself. And during launch, you're in full promotion mode, guiding your audience to take action and actually buy from you. Or if you've got multiple products or services that you offer all year round, you might have some social media content all year focused on driving leads and sales to those offers. And then at various times a year, you might focus on a special offer or a special campaign. So many of us have this. We have campaigns that are always on, so something that we sell all year round, and then we have some things that only happen a particular time of year, and your approach is going to be slightly different. So, for example, our masterminder, Chantel Gilbert, she sells solar and electrical services. She wants to sell those services day in, day out, all year round, so she posts about them all year round. And she's got some very specific times of year when it makes sense to be super focused on, for instance, installing air conditioning. So that would happen a little while before summer starts, or heating a little while before winter starts. And that's some context for why you want a social media plan and how it fits into your bigger picture planning. Now I want to talk about some top tips for planning out your social media calendar. And what we're going to start with is tip number 1, which was putting your big rocks in your calendar first. What I mean by that is get the most important campaigns, promotions, product launches, special events, anything that you might need to promote or share on social media into a timeline, so into a calendar. Now, if you're an e-commerce store selling a range of products like Masterminder Loretta Brandolini of Illuminate Beauty, you might have a promotion each month. So every month, there's a reason for them to come back to your e-commerce store. So map out 12 months and assign the promotion to each of those 3 months. But Loretta might also know that she's about to release a sunscreen. And so that big rock, she would time in line with the release of that product or service. Now, if you're a coach or a practitioner who wants to fill your calendar with appointments, you might have 3 or 4 promotions a year. Now, these promotions might involve a webinar, a special event, breakfast to attract your ideal clients and invite them to book appointments with you. They might be some of the ideas. You want to get those 3 or 4 big promotions on your social media calendar first.
Other big rocks might include special days or dates. Let's say you're celebrating your 10th year in business in the next year. That's something to get on your social media calendar because you will want to build some posts around that for sure. Or let's say you work with women like Susie and I do, and you want to do something special around International Women's Day. Or maybe you do well making an offer on Black Friday. You want to get all of those important big rocks into your social media calendar as well. Then once you've got that first pass of the big rocks, it's time for tip number 2 for getting smarter with your planning out of your social media calendar. And that is to figure out how much time ahead of these big rocks you want to be posting on social media about it. So you see how the big rocks go in and then everything comes from there. So if you're doing a monthly promo, you might decide that you're going to make week 1 of each month the teaser week, where you start to hint at what's coming and sharing quotes or content that helps people get this specific topic or problem or approach on their radar and top of mind. And then on week 2, you announce the promotion start date and you start building anticipation that it's coming. And then week 3 is the promotion week, where you're sharing all the good specials and the savings on offer. And then week 4 might be all about sharing stories from buyers of the promotion and showing proof that it was such a great deal and creating a bit of FOMO for those who missed out, because guess what? They're going to jump on the promotion when it happens again next time, or the new promotion next month, much faster. So you can then repeat that cycle again with the next promotion the following month.
Yeah. And so Michelle just gave you a really great framework on week 1 to week 4 of any monthly promotion. So I encourage you to just back up and make a couple of notes about that. Now, if you're someone who doesn't do a monthly promotion, but you do, say, 3 big campaigns a year, you might need a longer runway, a longer lead up. So you might have something that you're doing in April, in July and October. So you might decide that you want to be creating your social campaign for April offer as early as January or February. Here, you're teasing behind the scenes images of you creating something new, some new content, or you can't wait to share with them, or a personal story. So you're getting this topic on people's radar and they know that you're passionate about it. They know something's coming. And this all builds the story for when you actually start speaking more openly about the fact that there's a course coming that might start happening, say, in early March. And then by the time you let people know they can register and how there's a ton of interest, right? So you're starting to sort of pick up speed, but you start, as we said, a couple of months out by just starting to pepper your communications with something that's going to pique their interest. So a big tip here is that the format and timing of your marketing approach may vary, but the thing that remains the same is that you want to figure out how much lead time before that big rock that you want to be creating social posts about it. And what that lead time is doing, teasing, curiosity, building expectation, announcing, opening, etc. Then once you have those 2 things done, tip number 1, adding in your big rocks to your timeline. Tip number 2, adding in the lead time leading up to those big rocks. This is where tip number 3 comes in handy, which is to make some decisions about posting frequency. So that is, how many posts on each of your social media platforms do you want to make each week? Now, there are many, many ways that you can approach this. Some people make 1 post a day. Others post several times a day. The key is to find what works for you, both in terms of effectiveness in your market and also what you accomplished. Now, posting 3 times a day might get you more results, but if that's just not possible right now with the resources and time you have, then post once a day or twice a week or whatever you can manage. If blog is part of your social media that you're using, again, you might do 1 or 2 a week. You might do 1 a week. It really depends on what you can manage. The main thing is to establish a baseline for the standard times and the number of posts that you're going to make.
Right. And now your social media calendar is really starting to take shape. You can see those big rocks, the promotions, the campaigns, the special dates. And you can also see the lead times. How much before that date or opening of my promotion am I going to be wanting to post? And you're starting to see how many posts that you've got that you can allocate to telling that story. If you've decided I'm going to make a post today, then you can start to look at the lead time and say, well, in April, I want to be posting about this thing that's happening in May. Now I can see the available slots that I have in my social posting calendar to speak about this, to share information about this. So you're in a really good spot. And that sets you up nicely for our tip number 4, which is to work your way through the calendar, starting at the earliest dates, and allocate a purpose and high level to each of your posts. So imagine you've got those big rocks in and you know that you want to start posting about certain things at certain times. Go to the earliest post that you want to make and start looking for available slots in your social media calendar to start making these posts. So for example, let's say you're a Facebook ads expert, and if in January you've earmarked that time for pre-launch for a new course that you're going to announce in April, and you're going to teach a new Facebook ad strategy for people with a small budget and who aren't very tech savvy. That's the idea for this course. Then you want to think about how many of your daily Facebook posts in January you want to dedicate to paving the way for this announcement. So let's say you've decided I'm going to do a personal video story every Monday. Then when you look at your calendar in January, that first Monday in January, you could think about a personal story that you can tell on that very first Monday that really starts to pave the way for your course. Maybe it's about the growing number of people that you've noticed with small budgets who are not getting traction on Facebook, and how it's like burning their money, and how you've started the year committed to helping make a difference in this area. Now, you know you're heading towards the course, but what your audience is hearing is something that's also needs to be true, which is you are dedicated to making this change and you are starting the year making a difference. You're putting it on their radar. And then you might decide I'm going to do another personal video story on the second Monday of January where you mention a specific client and his or her predicament. That is that they had not a lot of tech savvy, not a lot of budget, but that you were able to make a real difference to them, and that you're mad about the fact that so many small business owners are in this tight spot, and you've hit on an idea that you think could make all the difference for them. Now if I'm following you, I'm thinking, what is this? And then for your third Monday of January, your personal story you could share could be some excitement like, Eureka, I've got it. I know exactly how I'm going to do this to help so many of the small business owners who've been telling me and responding to my posts about this that they've got a tight budget. And then you can do that with various other types of posts that you're making as well. A funny meme of someone lighting their money on fire and saying that's what buying Facebook ads is like for people. So you see how even though it's January and you're only starting to tease the idea, you know exactly the kind of thing to be posting and exactly how to get people interested and on topic for you.
So when you do this exercise, you might find there's a lot of crossover. You are in pre-launch in January for your April course on Facebook ads for people with low budgets, but you also have a short promotion happening in February where you do a special one-day Facebook ads for beginners training that you charge $1,000 for. And you're going to launch 5 Facebook ads mistakes lead magnet in late January and do a webinar in early February to promote that, right? That's totally normal, that we can be in a pre-launch state for one thing and in a pre-launch state for another, and even in a launch state for another offer. In this case, you want to think about how many of your standard posts you will give to each one of these stages and how many, without like tripping over yourself or confusing the audience, you can manage for those different, what's in pre-launch, what's in pre-launch, what might be an open cart. So you might give 30% of your posts to pre-launch of the April offer and the balance to ramping up for your February event and promoting your lead magnet in your webinar. And you could even consider adding in some additional posts, like a few days before the webinar, you might increase your posting frequency with some more urgency posts about your webinar. It's coming soon, don't miss out, 1 day to go, etc., etc.
Right. There's flexibility there. And you're also relying on some fundamental structure, which that's what planning is so good for, that helps you take the complexity out of this process. So you're really demystifying all these many decisions that we can feel like we have to make with social media posting. It just feels like thousands of decisions. Really, you're just boiling it down to just a few decisions. What and when are my big rocks, the things that are going to lead to sales and meeting my financial targets and the other big goals for my business? What are the phases of those promotions and over what time frame are they going to be happening? That pre-launch, etc. And then how am I going to use my regular posting schedule and format of my post to tell the relevant story about each of the relevant big rocks at the relevant time? So once you've got that mud map of what you're posting when at a high level, it's time to go into production mode. Writing that blog post or finding those memes or creating those interactive questions or getting those videos made, etc. But the great part is that now you've got at least the next 30 days and ideally the next 90 days mapped out like this, that you can start looking for efficiencies. So if you do this in November for your January posting, guess what? You're a little bit ahead. There's some breathing room. You can start thinking, well, look, if I write this blog post, I could also make that the script for the video. And if I add some compelling questions to the blog post, they could be my compelling question posts for the month. If you decide you're going to do ask some compelling questions in your social media plan about this specific topic. So you can start to kind of feed more than one bird, multiple birds with the same seed.
Right. And it's only when you can allow yourself the space to look at that year ahead, to look at that longer period of time ahead and look at how things fit in strategically, that you start to see those opportunities of how I can do this one thing and make it multiple things. The other thing that we do, because we have a sense of what our calendar looks like, say for 2025, we know what our big promotions are, we know what the themes are that we're going to be talking about each month. As you're out there in the world, you start to see inspiration. You start to see a social media post that you're like, oh, if I just change this and that would work for me in this time of year when I'm going to be doing this. There's so many advantages to really planning out, because this is where the time-saving part can really come into full effect. Using that one piece of content source to repurpose into several other pieces of content means that you can create that blog post, that video, or whatever, with that in mind. And if you need to make multiple videos for your social media calendar in the next 30 or 90 days, you can batch those videos together. You can set up your iPhone, get your hair blowed out if you want, record several videos in an afternoon just changing outfits. Or if you hire a film crew, if you had the opportunity to do that, that could be more cost efficient, because you're there to get it done. But you don't have to go to that expense. It's totally up to you. The important thing is that you look for ways to batch this content. Now, you might devote another afternoon to batch creating 4 blog posts that you need this month. So rather than going, oh my God, another week, another blog post needed, you can get them all done for the next month. And then another afternoon or morning to find, say, 16 great quotes that you can pull out of those posts and turn into images. One thing that I like to do, and I'm not as consistent with it as I want to be, but future goals, is to just have one day a month that is a content production day. And that is the day where I'll do my writing, my recording, and creating the content that has already been pre-thought. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have to sort of dive in and do some other pieces of content, but just seeing, again, while we're looking at the new year and it's reasonably clear and we get to design it, could you put aside that afternoon that we just mentioned, or the day, to do your social media planning at a deeper level where you're creating the content? Or can you brief a team member to take a blog that you've written and then turn it into these various other things and so on. So whatever your calendar looks like, there's going to be efficiencies where you can get your plan to the level of detail we're talking about in advance for the next 30, 60, or 90 days. Any one of those is going to be a great opportunity for you. So our top tips are, number 1, big rocks in your calendar first. We do this first, getting all our promotions, special events, anything we want to promote into a timeline. Number 2 is figuring out how much time ahead of these big rocks you want to spend posting on social media and what phases of the campaign, for example, pre-launch, etc., they are in. Number 3 is make some decisions about your frequency of posting. That is, in general, how many posts on each of the platforms do you want to make each week? And number 4, work your way through the calendar, starting at the earliest dates, and allocate a purpose and high-level idea to each of your posts in relation to the relevant big rock and phase of the campaign that you've planned to be talking about at that time.
Plus, we kind of mentioned in there 2 bonus tips, which I loved, which was looking at your calendar for where you can create source material that you can then repurpose in other places. So when you get that bird's eye view, it becomes clear how you can use one idea or one blog post in multiple different ways. So repurposing. And the other was batching, right? Batching the production of similar posts and forms of content once you've done those other important steps first. And you want to do those important steps first. You don't want to go and just like think about 20 random ideas and book a film crew or get in front of your iPhone for the day and then try and wedge it into your calendar in reverse. That's getting it back to front. So I know everyone talks about repurposing and batching, but I think the key here is you only move into thinking about that once you've got that strategic social media calendar in place. This is the smart way to do it, and not before. Starting with what can I batch and repurpose can mean you end up with social media content that's not connected to your marketing plan or your goals, and that's a great waste of your time.
Yeah, and we know it takes time to plan and that we never follow the plan perfectly, but I know that it's much better to have planned than not have planned at all. So we do hope this episode is inspiring you to start social media planning, or maybe you do that already and you've picked up a few tips or ideas that can help make your planning more strategic. Now, in today's show notes, we've included all the links and resources to things like other podcast episodes that are relevant if you want to explore today's topic a little further. You also want to check out several other episodes that help you plan, including the one Michelle mentioned earlier, our hot off the press, episode 248, which is why you need to plan next year now. But we've got a few others that are going to help. And in particular, we're going to put links to episode 195, which is stacking momentum with your annual marketing plan. That's a real good one. So stay tuned for that special link to the show notes, and I'll tell you where to get that in just a moment. But first, we love doing this show for you, and we love to get it out to as many women as possible. So we would love it if you are taking anything away from today's episode, then leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. We have over 100 5-star reviews, and we would love to add yours to it. So I want to give a quick shout out here to Ren Benedicto, who listened to a fabulous episode with one of our wonderful mastermind members, Sue Bell, and it was about the power of plain language. Great episode. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Highly recommend you listen. She said 5 stars, actionable, insightful, and always something new to learn. She said the podcast is so smart. Ever since I listened to the episode about the power of plain language, I knew I had to add this podcast to my weekly playlist. I always want to walk away with practical insights I can't wait to try in real life. So that is Ren Benedicto. Thank you so much. And it's one of our listeners from the United States. Now, anything we've mentioned here on the show can be found at our show notes, where you're going to find those at herbusiness.com/social calendar tips. herbusiness.com/social calendar tips. Michelle, what have we got coming up in the next episode?
This is an interesting one. So we all know that creating community is awesome. And we often think about that after someone has bought from us. How do we build community inside our membership? How do we build community for the people taking our course, etc.? But there are many fast and free ways to create community during your marketing phase. And when you can create community during your marketing, that is before people buy from you, oh my gosh, that fast tracks people's ability to know, like, and trust you. It helps you get better conversions and results. It helps your current clients actually help to sell your new clients to buy from you. And we're covering 5 of these fast and free ways to create community in your marketing in the next episode.
And that's coming up 2 weeks from now. If you don't already subscribe to the show, hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you are listening, and we'll see you back here for that episode. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go?
Good luck with your social media planning. Like Susie said, it's better to have planned and not followed it perfectly than to have not planned at all. So just give it a go, even if it's just picking one thing we've talked about today or having a bash at it imperfectly. We promise it will make life easier and better.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. Bye for now.